Good evening. I am Ella Lacey, President of the Carbondale Branch of AAUW, the American Association of University Women. It is distinctly my honor to welcome everyone, members, friends, and guests to tonight's program. This is our inaugural program for the 21-22 year. So we're especially excited about getting it started tonight and as we work on things throughout the year. Tonight's theme, Reaching for the Sky, suggests just what we want a larger number of girls and women to give some conceptual thinking to, and for them to put that to action so that we can increase the participation of girls and women in aviation careers. With that, again, I say welcome, and I am asking Marcia Anderson to give us introduction of our panelists for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Lacey. It is indeed a delight to introduce you to 4 women who are indeed reaching for the sky as they pursue careers in aviation, which is an underrepresented career field for women. We applaud their commitment and diligence in their quest for the career that is their choice. They do represent AAUW's purpose to advance equity for women and girls through advocacy, education, and research. So members of the panel tonight are, and would you please wave your hand as I introduce you, panel members? First of all, Dr. Karen Johnson, who is the Associate Professor of SIU's Aviation Technologies Program and is the advisor for the Women in Aviation Student Organization. Prior to her years in academia, she spent 6 years as an aviation field mechanic. Joining Dr. Johnson on the panel will be 3 current students in SIU's Aviation Technologies and Flight Programs. They are, again, wave your hand, Sarah Cada, and there's Sarah, Annabelle Staples, there you are, there's Annabelle, and Genny Starren. And Jenny's having trouble with the video on her computer, so she's with us and she can see us, but we can't see her now. So thank you all panelists for your willingness to share your career stories. Dr. Lacey, our Carbondale Branch AAUW President, will be serving as the panel moderator. So back to you, Ella.
All right, thank you very much. And indeed, we as moderator, I want to be sure again to say welcome to Ms. Johnson, who is going to share an overview that will help us in understanding the environment of aviation in today's world and help us to gain a better understanding of this issue of such low percentages of women in aviation, not only at SIU, not only in Illinois, but in the country and the world. It's a phenomenon of a difference, a very distinct difference. And for the part of AAUW, we are a small branch and we might have more heart than we have anything else to put into it. But we would definitely like to do our best to show support for getting girls and women interested in aviation so that the numbers can increase of people who are making application and getting into the program here and other places in the country. But we are particularly focused on SIU at this time. We're of the opinion that there is work to be done in getting more women into aviation, and that in some small way, perhaps our branch can be an encouraging and supportive force in this effort. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Johnson if she would like to just start with an overview herself, and then we can go into questions later if we need, or would you rather I just give questions? But if you are okay with the idea of proceeding with some overview, that will be great.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Thank you very much. So yeah, as Dr. Lacey was saying, that women are certainly an underrepresented group in all facets of aviation. And on the panel tonight, we have myself, who has been in the maintenance technology side of aviation for my career, and then we have two ladies who, Annabelle and Sarah, who will likely end up on the flight side of aviation. And then there's also the management or the business side of aviation, right? So you have all these sectors of aviation, and every single one of them, women are definitely underrepresented in every single sector. I'm in my 40s. I have never worked around a woman. Working with my female students is the closest that I would say I've come to working with another woman. I've been doing this since, all my students, close your ears. I've been doing this since the mid 90s. So that's where I'm at. But yeah, there's a lot of efforts both in the aviation industry and also through the FAA and then other university organizations similar to this one. And also at the high school level to try to get the interest built up among of female students getting into the field. The FAA just started a working group for this particular purpose, getting women interested in aviation. So the message is out there. The need is definitely, noticed by all sides of the industry. And, we got to put in the work. We got to start, getting into the schools a little bit earlier, knocking down some of the barriers that a lot of girls feel like there are, which, there definitely is for some girls, but we have the tools to knock those down. And so that's what we need to do.
Okay. No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was done. I was gonna say, if any of the girls have anything they want to add to that, they have certainly a different perspective now entering the field, much later than, at a different time than I entered it. They may have different things to add.
I think similar to how you said with you didn't really work with other females in the career, but you have more female students nowadays. Even just joining the aviation program, I had a high school who offered an aviation class, and I was the only class out of 35 students. So it was very daunting and intimidating just being the only female and sort of having to prove yourself that you can keep up with the guys in the studies. And especially like when they they can name every single airplane and they know all the information. And I'm sitting there just like, it's an airplane, that's all I can say about it. So it's very daunting, but once you get over the fact that you're gonna be the one out there, they're all gonna know your name, but you may not know all of theirs. Once you overcome that barrier, I feel it's a lot easier to transition into it and then get rolling with everything.
Well, if there are no more comments on that part, I'll pose one very simple question that I think everybody is kind of interested in, and that is, can you identify any particular event or thing in your background that made you interested in aviation? And that's for each of you to respond to a little bit.
Sure, I'll start. I grew up in Ferguson, Missouri, which is a town just north of St. Louis. It's relatively close to Lambert International Airport, and St. Louis kind of always had an aviation vibe to it. My father worked for McDonnell Douglas, which is now Boeing, but they had a huge footprint up there, and so I think it was just a combination of those two things, that just being around it, I was so close, and going to the airport, there were different places you could go and watch the airport or airplanes come in and leave. And there were stores that were associated with McDonnell Douglas that you could go in and, like Sarah was saying, you could see all the different models and see the names of them and kind of get familiar with things. And I think it was just that. It was just being around it that was the catch, for me. Genny, how did you get involved?
So funny story. When I graduated high school in 2017, I started as an architecture major. So I went to Wisconsin, Milwaukee into their architecture program. And then the first semester there, I crashed and burned epically. And so one of my teachers described my architecture style as pretty because it functions. So I took the hint and decided to look somewhere else. So my friend told me about the SIU Achieve program, who the director is Dr. Tan. And so she helps students that kind of crash and burn elsewhere transfer into SIU, even though you have really low GPAs. Like I had less than a 2.0, and she vouched for me and got me to SIU. And so I decided to try a different major, despite the fact that SIU had architecture here. And so Dr. Tan and I sat for 2 or 3 hours and talked about all my skills, interests, capabilities, all of that. And so she pulled out a giant book that holds all of SIU's majors, and she found aviation tech. So I basically did all my gen eds for a year at SIU. And then the next one, I joined aviation tech. And for the past 2 years, it's all made sense. It's all been much easier than architecture. It's been all A's and B's. Teachers have been great. They actually want you to succeed. Unlike in architecture, that was pretty sink or swim. So really the change in program is what did it for me.
And I would like to add that Genny is one of our best students. So she went from struggling in a program to being one of the top grade earners that we have. I couldn't be more proud of Genny than she's doing great.
Okay. Well, Genny, was there anything in your background that would have suggested aviation earlier to you?
I would say not really. None of my family has a lot of aviation background. If they do, they're all very spread out and we don't talk very often. So I didn't really have any family influence. I didn't hear about it at all during school. I live near O'Hare, but I didn't really get anything from that either. So pretty much until Dr. Tan told me it was a thing, I heard zero from it. So I was pretty far behind the curve compared to a lot of students who have a background in aviation.
Okay, that's very, very interesting and could be very appealing to students who feel they have no particular connection, So any other comments, Sarah, Annabelle, on that?
I think we lost Sarah for a minute. So could you repeat the question maybe?
Okay. That question was on background that attracted you to a career, any specific thing in your background that attracted you to a career in aviation.
Yes, sorry, my internet went out, so I had to reconnect. I think for me, I don't really have any family members who are in aviation. I know that seems to be a lot with people. They either have a parent or grandparent, somebody to get them started. For me, My father, he works at FedEx, which is based at O'Hare. So he's a truck driver for them. And he'll go to O'Hare every morning and do their routes. So one day they had like an open house and he brought me and my sister along. So we got to tour the trucks, the airplanes that they use, and check really associated a pilot profession as being an opportunity for me. But I think that definitely helped open the doors for me. And then once I got into high school, I was offered the aviation class. So then I sort of started realizing that it could be something more if I just follow down that path.
Okay, nice. Annabelle, we're not going to let you go without that.
I got started in aviation pretty early on. Both my parents are pilots, my grandparents are pilots. So we have a grass strip in our backyard where I used to go flying with my parents all the time. It was always a thrill for me and something I loved. I kind of got away from it in high school, kind of those middle years there. And then once I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do, despite my family being so heavily involved in aviation. And I went flying again and realized that I didn't want to do anything else. And that was really my passion.
Okay. Well, that's quite an interesting mix in terms of responses to that same kind of thing. We truly appreciate that. I guess the next question is about barriers. Are there particular barriers that you feel exist related to getting into training? Or are there particular barriers for Karen's part? She kind of alluded to a little bit, maybe about being a faculty member alone kind of thing in some ways. But are there any barriers that you'd like to share with us in terms of things that you see that get in the way of you being the best that you can be all the time and in the best mood that you could be? And that's for whoever'd like to take a stab at that.
I would probably, so I kind of separate those into a couple of different categories as far as barriers to getting into the industry or into the training, you know, for the younger generation coming out of school. I think the biggest barrier at that age, at that stage of their lives, is that most high schools, unfortunately, aren't like the one that Sarah went to, where they have an aviation class. So most high schools really don't know that this type of training is really readily available, you know. Back in my day, when I was Sarah and Annabelle's and Genny's age, you know, the thought of going into the aviation, it was, well, you must have been in the military before and then come out, you know, to civilian life and transitioned that way. It wasn't about getting training in a school setting. So I think we're kind of still, you know, we're kind of lagging in getting the knowledge out to a lot of the high schools about, you know, training programs that exist, you know, in our case, right in Southern Illinois' backyard. You know, so I think that's a huge barrier. The other barrier I would say is a self-imposed barrier, and Sarah hit it on the head. You know, you got to get over not feeling like you're to par with all the guys in your class. I promise, you know, I've been teaching now for 17 years. I have I have more male students come into my class who have no experience with aviation whatsoever. And, you know, so they're no different than, you know, a female coming into the class with no experience whatsoever. So I think once you can kind of erase that barrier, just like Sarah said, once you can get over that hump and realize that you're really not that different than everybody else, then the sky's the limit, right? Pun intended. So.
Okay, does anyone else have a comment on that same topic?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that can happen when you're in school and in classes is that when you get up into group work, you know, guys try and be somewhat courteous and do things for you, but you kind of have to establish yourself to doing equal parts or parts that you need to do, because when you don't fix things, don't mess with the plane, don't do things, you're not really learning it. So you kind of have to get yourself in there, because while they think they're doing you a favor, they're actually hurting you in the long run. So you kind of got to get yourself in there so you can learn, so you can touch, you can do a bunch of the aviation stuff.
Mhm. Okay, that sounds quite reasonable as an approach to take. In terms of one of the things that you hear people talking about, not necessarily because it's related to gender or anything, but just related to broadening the base of people in aviation, is the cost, the additional cost of the aviation program, in addition to what other students are paying to go to college. Now, have any of you had experiences with special kinds of things that are available to help to cut that cost, or strategies or anything related to that?
I think the
Sarah?
cost does present a large barrier for many people, because as you said, it does add up very quickly, the expenses. It's not like just getting in a car where you can drive and just pay gas money to get the experience. It takes time, it takes hours, it takes a lot of money, even just talking with instructors. With that, I think scholarships, for me at least, have been the bread and butter of my whole foundation.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't come from a super wealthy family or anything like that. So just speaking with my mom about, hey, I think I want to do aviation, she seemed a little intimidated by it because she's realized the cost of all that. But when I started adding up all the scholarships, it really cut that cost to be more affordable. So just having funding available for maybe lower income scholarships, any financial assistance can definitely make the outreach for anybody into aviation a lot stronger.
Mhm. Okay.
I would add to that she's 100% right. We got, the scholarships are the way to go, whether they're through the school or through other organizations like Women in Aviation, or other groups like that who are offering scholarships. A lot of our flight students, once they get into once they get past their CFI rating, they'll turn around and then start flight instructing for the school. So then, at the same time they're earning hours, they're also earning pay. So that can help. But of course, Sarah, how long does it take to get to that point? That's not your freshman year, right? So you have to work up to that. Technology side and management side, obviously there's a lot less expense there. It's the flight hours on the flight side where all the expense is accrued. That's not to say there's not expenses on the tech side. They're just not near as large as on the flight side, but same thing, scholarships.
Mhm. Okay. Well, to turn a little bit to the future, Karen, you've already told us about your work in industry, and of course now we have you in academia. So we aren't going to ask you to project out into some other place in terms of the future. But for the other three panelists, the students, would you share with us something about what your aspirations are for how you will use your training in aviation, in the fields of aviation?
So I really love any type of volunteer work, giving back to communities. I've just learned over the years that you get so much help from your family, your friends, people you don't even know helping support you. So I take that mentality and I try to apply it to everything that I do. So right now I'm learning to become a CFI, and I want to teach incoming students how to fly, because I had so many supportive instructors who got me where I am today, whether it's through the actual training or just mentally motivating me to continue. So I want to pass that on to other students entering the SIU flight program and pay it forward, really.
Okay. So Annabelle, could you share a little bit about what you want to do with your training in aviation?
Yeah, as of right now, I'm also working on my CFI to become a flight instructor. I plan on doing that for the next couple of years. And after that, I've considered joining the military, trying to get a pilot slot there, or going to the airlines.
I see. Okay.
So I've been trying to go through the list. There's quite a few options and I've narrowed it down. So far the leading option would be to work on helicopters on fire contracts. So the helicopters that go fight wildfires, basically, I do the maintenance on those helicopters because California has issues with that right now. So basically all the groups, no matter where they're at right now, they kind of all migrate to California, which my parents will end up to retiring to. So basically I'm going to be over there helping with the wildfires while also being near my parents so they don't freak out in their retirement.
Okay. Well, very good. That's a nice representation of some things you're thinking of already. In the Q&A, there is a question about pipeline programs, whether anyone is aware of any pipeline programs for getting girls into aviation.
So yeah, so right now, I can't speak about any that are specific to females. No. Women in Aviation and Association for Women in Aviation Maintenance, which are the two female aviation RSOs that we have in the program that I advise. Those are national type programs. I'm not aware of any like specific events or things that they're doing here. Now we do have, there is, and I'm sorry, I'm going to blank on the name. Oh, wait, Expanding Your Horizons. I think we do that every year with the university, right? Where we have the girls come to all of kind of the underrepresented programs throughout the university. So we do have that. And then we do have, so next week, actually, we're having, we finally kind of set up some partnerships with local high schools, but again, it's not focused on female. No, it's focused on local high schools. So all the students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so Gail put in the chat, the Girls in Aviation Day, which Sarah can probably talk about because that's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, so every year, the International Women Aviation Organization, they have a National Girls in Aviation Day. So it brings in local girls from communities into like a local airport or WIA chapter who host events throughout the day. So next weekend, we're actually hosting ours at the SIU airport. So the kids are going to play in the simulators. They're going to be able to fly the plane like that. They're going to do a metal shop activity to see more of what like AMPs do or what the work they're involved with. And then we get to do battle rockets. So they see the science behind creating and how does the surface area affect the lift. And so they get to see a whole bunch of different aspects of aviation. They get to learn about the different jobs available to them. So it's a really great introductory way for younger kids just to get their heads into aviation to see that, hey, this is an opportunity that they can do.
Okay, very good. At this point, I'm going to ask of my fellow panelists, if you have questions we would like to hear from you. If you have any additional questions that you would like to ask of our wonderful panel. You're the only ones who can come forth and talk. So that would be Martha, Marsha, Jennifer.
Okay, I just put a question in chat. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine.
In the panel?
In the chat, you have it.
Okay, but
You say you put one in the chat box?
Yeah, I can go ahead and vocalize it as
Okay, that'd be fine.
I think Sarah was the one that was talking about scholarships and being able to fund everything, because it's a very expensive training venture for you folks. So how do you go about learning the scholarships? You know, what were some of the things that, you know, some of the things that we could pass on to any girls that are interested in pursuing education? And, you know, the cost side comes up, you know, oh, but that's so expensive, we can't afford that. And so how did you go about pursuing the scholarships? And are any of those scholarships industry based? Because I really don't know anything that much about, you know, scholarships for aviation training.
Yeah, so like what Karen mentioned earlier, she said SIU has specific aviation scholarships, so their students can apply to. And then if you look a little broader, you can look at aviation organizations. They usually have scholarships. So Women in Aviation has some, AOPA has some, the FAA has their own. So if you look at all the different aviation organizations, most of them will have some type of funding available or scholarships that you can apply for. When I first started, I just did a basic Google search in aviation scholarships. So even just something as simple as that, it'll start getting you to different places, and you can ask people who have maybe won a scholarship in the past for additional resources such as that.
Okay, very good. Is there any other question or comment from the other panelists?
So I'd say organizations are a really good place to look for those scholarships, because you would take that into your professional, basically career, being part of these organizations, being a member of them. They give you a lot of networking connections, not just scholarships, but the networking part of it. And then also, like, WIA is the broad one for both mechanics and flight people, but AWAM, who are more focused on the mechanics, they have a lot of scholarships that help you buy tools and other gear. And basically SIU has a great partnership with 3 different tool companies that give you a 50% off on your tools. So I did my tool order all in one go, and that 50% discount really helped, because basically tools was going to be something like $7,000, but because of the 50% discount, I got the tools and the toolbox that I'm going to use when I actually graduate and go out in the field, only for half of that. So that is what really helped me personally.
Okay, very good. Now, I do see a question in the chat box. Do you recommend getting your private pilot's license before starting college? Do you have any comment on that, anyone?
I definitely recommend it. I know like a lot of the airlines are based on seniority, so the faster you can get through your flight training, the faster you can get on with an airline, the more luck you'll have whenever things like COVID happen and they have to lay people off, or, you know, so on.
I agree with Annabelle. And I would also say, even if you're going to do the tech side, the aviation maintenance tech, or management, having your private pilot license is, it gives you a leg up. You're kind of like an all around aviator, right? You know how to work on it, you understand how it works, and you also know how to fly it. So I would like to get the message out there that, getting your private pilot's license is beneficial in all three areas, not just flight, and I think Sarah was going to chime in too.
Okay.
Adding on to that, I think it also is important to emphasize that you don't need to come into a flight school with the private pilot already completed. I know it does give you a boost up and you can sort of skip that step. It saves you a little money sometimes. But it also depends on what you want to do. If maybe the airlines isn't your end goal, maybe you want to do survey work, maybe taking the extra time to just slowly finish the private license and adjusting everything will be more beneficial than rushing everything in a summer or half a year. I didn't come in with the private license, but I'm able to still get into my CFI training in my senior year. So I definitely accelerated through the course, even though I didn't jump ahead with the private license coming in.
Okay. This is a question of just personal curiosity. It may be, you may say, dumb question, maybe everybody knows, but the connection between aviation and space travel, space work. As for instance, when someone wants to be an astronaut, I know they don't have to be a pilot first, but is there considerable connection in terms of the students that are in the program or programs that exist? Would they connect up as one program if there was space training for things about space effort with aviation being present?
So to the best of my knowledge, I think we have 2 or 3 alumni from the Aviation Maintenance Technologies program who now work at SpaceX. Now, they're not astronauts, they're working on the maintenance side, the development, the design side of, the actual, shuttles and rockets and technologies and stuff. So they're the skill set that you get going through the Aviation Technologies program and that certification that you train for, there is a direct connection there to the space industry on that sector of the industry. Now, of course, as far as being an astronaut, like you said it perfectly, you don't have to be a pilot to be an astronaut, right? But yeah, and Sarah and Annabelle can probably talk more about that than I can. An aviation background, it almost just seems like a logical step to space, right? So I'm sure that there is some connection there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do correlate quite a bit, I would think. You deal with similar airspace rules. You have to be aware of how they would maybe conflict with each other. So I think if you take one, it'll help build knowledge in the other one. It'll help you make an expert in that field. And plus, it doesn't hurt just to gather some additional information, some extra experience, because it can always help you in the long run.
Okay.
There is
Annabelle,
another
would you like to-
question in the Q&A box as well. I'm not sure if you saw that.
No, I didn't. Annabelle, did you want to comment on the that about connection between aviation and space efforts?
Other than what Sarah said, no, it's all interconnected, and having a background in aviation would certainly help get your foot in the door if you wanted that career path.
Okay. Someone wants to ask the question as to whether, I think, Karen, whether you're aware of how females are distributed in terms of flight, avionics, and aviation, I think it was. I had to copy it too.
Yeah, I saw the answer. I think somebody put it in chat as well. So I'm gonna fudge on exact numbers, but
That's
I would
fine.
say, in aviation technologies, Genny and Annabelle, I think right now we're sitting around maybe 7 or 8 girls out of 130, 140 students. Management and flight typically have more females in them. And Sarah can probably give a better number than I can. I see them walking in the hallways, but I don't have them in class. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't give an exact answer either. Usually though, in every class, there's at least you and maybe one other female, maybe 2. So I'd say at least 20% of them, 30% are gonna be females compared to males.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's the phrase I'm looking for? That's pretty representative of how it would also be in industry. There tends to be more female pilots than female maintenance technicians. And and like we've kind of talked about this whole time, I think the reasons for that are quite obvious. And that's one of the barriers that probably one of the biggest barriers to overcome for the industry.
Okay. All right, then at this point, I'm going to wrap it up unless someone has some other comment they wanted to share with us. If any one of you as panelists had something that we did not ask you about that you would just love to share, then this would be the time. We would be happy to receive that.
Ella, can you hear me? This
Yes.
is Ron. I just wanted to ask Dr. Johnson to compare when she went to school. Was it Central Missouri, where you did your training? Compare the education, the programs, the number of females that you remember compared to what you're experiencing now.
Sure. So yeah, I did my undergraduate work and did my maintenance training at Central Missouri State University. I think it's a different name now. I think Missouri changed all their university names a while back. But anyways, Warrensburg, Missouri was where that was. Let's see, I had 15 people in my maintenance training class, and the other classes, like the cohorts around me, about the same size. And I was it. So I had 15 brothers the whole time I was in college. So compare that to now, our class sizes, excuse me, in technologies usually stay pretty steady around 130, 7 to 8 girls in there. That's pretty average. I've had some bumper crop years where I'm up around maybe 10 or 12. And then I've had some years where I'm lucky if there's 1 or 2. So it's pretty low. And, even where I was, the class size was smaller, but the percentage was still the same. And again, that was in the 90s.
7 or 8 out of 100, and I forgot what number you said, but probably that's pretty close to the number of women in aviation in the country. Like 94% are male is the way it's presented in the United States. Australia is a little bit ahead of us. I think it says Australia has 90% male and 10% female. So it just shows still that it's so much better than it was, but it's lots of work still to be done. So I am going to appeal to you that if you have just getting some feel for what we would like to do is to help in encouraging that number to grow. So if you have ideas of things that you think we may be able to work on, please share that with us, with our AAUW branch, with myself. And we would like to get an effort going, but we are, as I mentioned earlier, a small group, limited in our engagement in such activities. We are interested and we would like to use our voice to try to improve things as much as we can. So with that, we thank you, thank you, thank you. This was a very warm and dynamic panel, and we hope you will join us for something else at some other time this year yet. So thank you very much.
Thank you for
At
having
this
us all.
point, all right, thank you. At this point, our membership, our Vice President for Membership, Martha Ellert, is going to share with us a few things about membership and meetings to come. Is she still on? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I'm here. I just was waiting to unmute myself. For those of you who don't know that much about AAUW and who we are and what we do and so forth, I'll just say a few words. AAUW is a very old organization, founded in 1881. And so it's been promoting equity and education for women and girls all that time. We have over 170,000 members. We have 1,000 local branches, of which Carbondale certainly is one. Membership is open to anyone, male or female, who holds an associate's or equivalent degree from a regionally accredited institution. Our mission statement is simple. It's advancing equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. And we work locally to achieve our mission by providing local scholarships and presenting informative programs such as the one we had this evening. The national organization provides fellowships, grants, and awards. It does pioneering research on women, girls, and education. And through the legal advocacy funds, it challenges sex discrimination in higher education and in the workplace. Our Carbondale branch was founded in 1927. Our ways of doing things have certainly changed and evolved through the intervening 94 years, but the core mission is the same, which is to advance gender equity for women and girls. We host our monthly programs September through May, as Ella mentioned, and everyone is welcome to attend any one of our business meetings or programs. We would welcome anyone who shares our goals to join AAUW or to simply ask for more information. Through a special program, anyone attending this event can do so at a much reduced introductory rate for the first year. Students may join at an even lower rate. So if anyone is interested in joining or just getting more information, you may inquire through our Facebook page, Carbondale Branch AAUW, or send me an email, msellert, E-L-L-E-R-T, @AOL.com, and I'd be glad to interact with you. Please contact me also if you want to get notices of our programs. I do send out email alerts about any program as they're coming up. And all of our branch meetings, again, are open to the public and everyone is welcome. So we're really glad that you've joined us this evening and we hope you'll do so again in the near future. And I will turn it back over to Ella at this point.
Okay, thank you, Martha. Thank you very much. Again, to the audience, we say thank you for having come. Thank you for the great participation you had. And please keep us in mind for the next meeting. October 12th is our next meeting, and we're joining with UNA, United Nations Association of the USA, on a film that evening that you will see advertised about human trafficking, a documentary on human trafficking. Love, Sonia, I believe it is. That would be an interesting one to join us on. I think we've done the housekeeping things and everything. So again, I'll say thank you for coming. Thank you for participating, and we'll see you next time. Oh, thank Jennifer for the library's participation in providing support to us. Even though she's a member, we do want to thank the Carbondale Public Library for the wonderful work that it does in helping us at times that we need to see each other and communicate, and it isn't practical to do it in person. So they have been just wonderful. Again,